Hi, welcome back. This is the second teaching on effective communication. Today I will take much of my talk from the book Everyone Communicates, Few Connect by John Maxwell. The book's main premise explores how to increase your influence with your workers and incidentally your boss. Remember from our last discussion, we talked about leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Our first video also gave the rationale for building bridges versus building walls between people. It helped us to understand that effective communication is more about connecting with workers and is more about our attitudes toward communication than it is about learning more specific communication skills. We learned in that video that while improved communication skills are necessary to be effective, without the right attitude and without good understanding of connecting principles, check this out, we tend to ignore new or different skill sets when a crisis arises. And then what we do as humans, we reset to our old communication habits. And it's our attitude toward communication that keeps us from falling back into ineffective habits. As John Maxwell says in Everyone Communicates, but Few Connect, it is the connection that is vital for any person who wants to lead and manage successfully. Otherwise, as John says, you'll be like a nuclear power plant, disconnected from the power grill. You have incredible resources and potential, but will never be able to put them to use. So connect with the grid and develop the right attitude toward connecting. I find that without connecting, we have no success. I found this out in my experience in my first supervisory assignment. I remember my first year as a supervisor. It was 1980, the year Ronald Reagan was elected president. I was one of 7 supervisors, and I had 6 people to supervise. In the beginning of this assignment, I really was disconnected from my people because of 3 circumstances. 1, I was only 25 years old, and the average age of my workers was 33. 2, I was promoted from within, so I became the boss of folks that I hung out with, that I went to barbecue with, I even went to happy hour with. That wasn't pretty good. It wasn't an ideal situation to be the boss of people that you hung out with. And then there was 3. There was Paul. Paul had 2 master's degrees from NYU, and he applied for this position also. But somehow I came out on top. And I tell you this, in many cases, when we look at why we don't connect with our workers, I'm going to say this, and you may not agree with me, a lot of it is our fault. And what I mean by that, if I looked at my problems with my unit, in many cases, most of my problems rested with Paul. And Paul and I bumped heads for almost 4 or 5 months. And we were like 2 alpha males who basically circled a prime piece of meat. We bumped heads, we got no work done. And it wasn't until my supervisor came to me and said, Dan, you're losing your unit. What's going on? And you know what I did? I blamed Paul. I blamed other workers. I said they were insubordinate, that they in fact refused to do the work. There was a lot of sabotaging going on. I, in effect, blamed my workers for not getting the work done. My supervisor was real quiet for a while, and she said, Dan, let me give you a lesson about supervision. It's always your fault. If something is going wrong with your workers, it tells me you're not connecting with them. May I suggest one thing to you? May I suggest that you look at how you're connecting with your folks, and one of those ways of connecting, might have something to do with common ground. I thought about what she said, and I thought about it for a while. Now let me say a few words about common ground between a supervisor and a worker. These comments does come from my experience with Paul and many more workers like Paul. First, it's difficult to find common ground with others when the only person you focus on is yourself. During my first assignment, I focused only on how much pain Paul caused me, not how ineffective I ran my unit, not on the fact that my workers were not getting the type of support they needed. My attention was divided between how I could maintain a one-upmanship on Paul and how I might punish him for his insubordination. Because I was worried and nervous, there were many sleepless nights. All I did was to focus on myself, my pain, and my perceptions. You know, here's the thing. If common ground is important, how do we cultivate a common ground mindset? There is such a thing as a common ground mindset. And John makes an excellent point when he says, I believe that connecting is a choice. And he challenges leaders and managers and supervisors to make the following choices every single day. 1, the availability choice. And he challenges people to choose to spend time with others to discover common ground. Now, I understand we got the busyness of work to do, and we don't always have time to spend with our employees. But I tell you one thing, if you spend the time up front, it'll pay off big time in the long run. Number 2, listening. I will choose to listen my way to common ground. I love this because it means it requires us to pay attention to others and to listen to others at a far deeper level than normal, even when under the pressure of getting the work done. And check this out. Every time you are willing to listen to others, you achieve common ground. And then you listen. And then you listen. This is what I really like about this. And then you listen well enough to figure out how the thing you're offering them fulfills their needs. And I'll say something like this. You know, when I give them something, I'll ask the person, if in fact, does that get to where what you're after? Did you understand what I said? Tell me what you think about what I said. And it's amazing how much information you get from a person when in fact they say something like, yeah, but. And it's that yeah, but, if you listen well enough, you'll find that there'll be many areas where you can find common grounds with a person. So I found that one becomes an ineffective connector when listening is defined by a negative. Now, let me tell you what I mean by that. Listening so that I have enough information to win my argument or get my way. That's not effective. But the most effective way is to listen to them so that I understand what they need or find those common points. And while listening occurs, it lets them know I really care about them, about developing them, and that it's through them that I get my work done. That's usually my top priority. Number 3, questions. Oh boy, I will be interested enough in others to ask great questions. There's something about great leaders who know how to ask great questions. The skill in answering questions often determines the difference between a good communicator and an outstanding communicator. This is one skill all of us can learn and continue to improve. We never get really great at it until we practice it over and over again. In fact, Peter Drucker, who some people consider the father of modern management, remarked one day, "My greatest strength as a consultant is to be ignorant and ask a few questions." What a great way of finding common ground. 4, thoughtfulness. I choose to think of others and look for ways to thank them. I have always liked catching people doing something right and then thank them for that. This is one of the most powerful ways of connecting with people, connecting with your staff. I can't tell you how often managers catch people doing something wrong and then they levy some type of punishment, especially if the punishment is in the form of a verbal reprimand. Too often the supervisor emphasis is not on catching them doing something right, but on catching them doing something wrong. Can you imagine how much more effective a connected leader would be if one changes that mindset? Now, number 5, and John talks about this, I will choose to care about people. Roger Alley, who was a communication consultant to presidents, says, if people like you, they will listen to you. If they don't like you, they won't listen to you. So, how does a supervisor or leader become liked? It's simple. People like people who like them. I found as a supervisor that I could say almost anything to a person who knows I care and that I like them. It seems to be a fact. When others know you care, they listen. Or as John Maxwell and Steve Covey would say, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Now, if there's a more important key to communication than finding common grounds, I can't think of one. Common ground is a place where people can discuss differences, share ideas, find solutions, and start creating something together. Teamwork. My advice is to focus daily on connecting by finding common ground, and you'll be really good at improving your workers' attitude to do their best work. And you won't make the kind of mistakes I made in my first supervisory assignment. Thank you, and catch them doing something right.